The Victorian era was a very challenging time for women. Women were expected to uphold certain standards to meet men's expectations. This is ingrained into children at a young age who are taught to believe that the fathers are the important parent and the mothers are of a lower life form. By the time girls reach puberty, they are taught to be symbols of virtuous piety. Girls are encouraged to keep a level of purity, uphold a standard of beauty and femininity. They are prohibited from expressing any forms of sexuality and sensuality. They are taught to sustain a certain level of manners and speech that is expected from a lady. Young women were educated for the sole purpose of marriage, domestic life, and to promote the betterment of their families. Once married, women were expected and required to be submissive and obedient to their husbands. Husbands often objectified their wives and were encouraged to do so by the church, who claimed that women were the property of their husband and had no right to have an opinion. Women who failed to uphold any of these male standards or spoke out against the gender roles would run risk of being abused by their husbands, degraded, marked as witches, or killed. A husband's cruelty and jealousy has no limitations, as is portrayed in Robert Browning's poem My Last Duchess.
In My Last Duchess, Duke Ferrara immediately presents himself as arrogant when he shows dominance over his wife's portrait, but is plotting and objectifying her even after death. This follows another display of dominance by hiding the Duchess' portrait behind curtains that only Duke Ferrara has the authority to pull. As soon as Duke Ferrara begins his tale of his last Duchess, he immediately accuses her of being flirtatious and behaving impurely because of her involuntary blushing. Duke Ferrara hated how she would devalue him by placing him at the same level as everyone else. Duke Ferrara was too prideful and had such a massive ego that he refused to lower himself enough to tell the Duchess of his distaste with her behavior. The poem takes a significantly sinister turn in line
45.
when Duke Ferrara says,
This grew.
This was his breaking point, his limit, the moment when the Duke decided it was better to end her life. The Duke had no remorse of his actions, as he justifies himself arrogantly to the man that served under the family whose daughter he was trying to marry. In the Duke's eyes, the last Duchess failed him. She failed at upholding the female virtues, and in doing so failed herself. The Duke saw her as nothing but property, with every right to dispose of her once she was unfit and unqualified to advance or promote the Duke's status and image. And even in death, the Duchess remains as the Duke's property, forever framed on his wall.